So today I wanted to talk about outplays versus consistency and how that kind of figures into ranking up in Overwatch and how that can kind of help you just knowing what to do when and differentiating the two in your own gameplay. Now if that sounds interesting, then you're at the right video. And if you'd like to see any other stuff like this in the future, the top part of the screen right now there is a card that can just take you to a playlist that will hopefully help you with a lot more videos similar to this. So there you go. With that said though, let's just talk about this. And I feel like this is a very underrated subject, and not really too many people talk about it, so maybe you'll learn something a little bit different. So as far as outplays versus consistency, first off I'm just going to talk about kind of what each is, what the benefits of them are, and then, you know, kind of bring it together in the end. First off with outplays. And I feel like outplays are probably the easiest thing to kind of understand why it's good to do. If you look at the best players, this is what you will focus on. You will focus on the Genji 1v5s. You will focus on Seagull taking out every single person by himself. You're going to focus on Raksu getting a headshot and do another headshot and do another headshot. Triple outplay instantly. You're going to focus on a lot of that stuff where people go for really crazy plays. They get it. It works out. They get the point. It's awesome. It makes sense why everybody focuses us on this so much, because simply put, it can carry you a lot of games if you can do it really well, if you can get a lot of these things, and if really you are just skilled enough to outplay a lot of the other players. They're essentially just the moments that can flat out carry your team a game. However, there are some problems with outplays that I feel like some people don't really talk about. One is that they are very risky to do. If you watch a lot of the pro players, some of them play very consistently and some play for a lot more outplays, and the ones that play a little bit less consistently often get a lot of really cool plays, but as well with that, they often die a decent amount. They get picked off a decent amount. They go for something that's really awesome, and then maybe the enemy team does something awesome on them. And it can kind of hurt you at times. If you're in a really bad position, then of course going for an outplay might not be the best idea. It might put you into an even worse position where now your team has to wait for you, now your team has to just not really do much, and it can be kind of hard. As well with that, I feel like a lot of people kind of overestimate how much they can outplay the enemy, which is something that you don't want to do. If you know that you're very good at your character, then of course you can go for some really jank stuff. However, if you feel like you're just, you know, the average player at your character, or, you know, slightly above average or whatever, maybe you shouldn't go for those 1v2s. Maybe you shouldn't go for, you know, trying to hit one of their DPS that also has a support while you're by yourself. Maybe you shouldn't do all that stuff, because often you're not gonna really be able to get it. And that's where I feel like a lot of people fall into just, you know, kind of pressuring themselves into trying to do amazing things to carry their team, and a lot of the times just putting way too much pressure on themselves, going way too far in, and ending up hurting their team more than they're helping their team. With that said though, if you can get nice outplays, and if you can get a lot of nice picks, you can get a lot of nice kills, great ultimates, you can carry games. So that's something you have to remember. And a lot of the pro players are very good at outplaying. But as well with that, we can't forget the other side of the coin, which is consistency. And as far as consistency goes in this game, it's essentially hand in hand just as important to do as outplays for the majority of players. Of course, consistency does have the main benefits that you could probably guess pretty easily. It'll make so that overall, when you play a lot of games over a long period of time, you're going to be playing pretty well. You aren't going to be throwing any games, but at the same time, you might not be carrying way too many games. You might just be slightly better than the average player and kind of climbing after a extended period of time, which, you know, you could say is good enough for you. As well with that, you probably won't be a real hindrance to your team. You probably won't be picked off all the time for your team. And you're probably going to be playing meta characters if you're really going for a lot of consistency, which might help your team even more with that. But of course, there are a few problems with playing super consistent that are pretty obvious as well. I feel like one main one that is just a good one to keep in mind is that if you are playing consistently, of course, you can't really carry a lot of your games. If you aren't going for these things that, you know, might be risky but could give you a lot of profit, you aren't going to be able to get the profit. And when we see a lot of the best players in this game, while they are very consistent, they as well have to, you know, sometimes go out of their way, do some really cool stuff, and risk it for the biscuit. And sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes it does. As well, I guess a problem about consistent playing is that often you don't really practice your mechanics that require, you know, outplaying as much. For example, if you play Genji a lot, if you're just staying on the cart or staying near the cart, meme, and get a lot of damage out, you know, you go for your blades when the entire team fight's ready, whatever. Of course, you will be doing decently, but often you won't really get used to the high pressure situations. You won't really be able to outplay way too many people, and you won't be able to get way too many kills on your own and kind of go in like that, which I guess can be a problem, and it can really hold you back once you get to the higher ranks. However, that's really kind of where consistency ends. And now that we have both these in mind, you know, the positives and negatives of both, I feel like in ranked games, the lower elo you are, the better consistency gets. I feel like really when you're playing, you know, anywhere like diamond or below, even maybe even masters and below, consistency is really key. A lot of the times, while you might think that you have amazing tech skill, a lot of the times it's just not quite good enough to do these amazing things, and you might want to stay instead a little bit further back, play a little bit more safe, play more consistently, play more you know, conservative, and do stuff like that. And I feel like that is actually going to help you climb a lot faster than playing really risky, because if you play risky, you're probably going to end up killing yourself more times than going to end up killing the enemies. Now, I guess a problem with this is that you don't get as much practice as fast doing the risky things, which might hurt you a little bit later up the ladder, but I feel like you're going to learn the basics of the game a lot more, learn how to play the game, you know, how to play the objective, how to go on like that, and how to build team comps probably a little bit more as you're paying attention to your entire team quite a bit more than the other way. Of course, as well with that though, you know, once you get to a certain rank, I feel like getting big outplays is important. Of course, consistency we can see is really great by the top level players just easily climbing through the smurfs. But as well with that, once you get, let's say, to like diamond or masters or whatever, a lot of the times everybody's already really consistent. They're already doing good almost every single game, and they've reached a level where they can play with that consistency. And that's where I feel like a lot of people get to. At that point though, playing consistent won't always win you your games. And essentially I feel like a problem about playing consistent is that if you always do it, you're kind of flipping a coin. Will your team be better than the enemy team? That's it for a lot of the times, because you really aren't going to be the deciding factor in a lot of games. Sure, I guess if you are a more consistent player than the average player, you are going to be able to carry at least a small amount of games, but you won't be able to make those huge explosive plays that do quickly help you climb up the ladder. And of course, that's where getting really good at doing all these explosive, risky plays that completely outplay the enemy, you know, that does kind of help once you get to a certain rank. As far as watching pros though, and as far as seeing how that really works for them, you can see a big mix of both. When we're watching these top 500 streams, we see some really cool moments by all these characters, you know, Genji, Raksu, Genji's, Seagull's Genji, I guess, and Raksu's Hanzo, there we go. We see a lot of really cool plays where they're just going around, getting headshots, 1v3, you know, doing whatever they're doing. However, at the same time, a lot of times what people don't show in their, you know, best clips of whatever person playing is, you know, the person just waiting on the cart, playing consistently, getting out a lot of damage at far range, waiting, not overextending. But then when they see, you know, maybe a prime time to go for an overextension, they actually take it. And that's kind of how pros seem to be able to kind of mix these two. It's important to learn how to mix both of them, and it's important to learn how to, you know, play consistently, play smart, but I guess eventually consistently learn how to play well while being risky. Add them both together into a pot and go on from there, which is weird. These aren't two opposites really, they're just two things that you have to learn how to do in the game. And I feel like, of course, it's probably better to learn how to be consistent first and then risky, but once you learn both of them, that seems to be kind of where the big piece of the pie is in the middle, and that's where we see a lot of teams doing really quite well. Some teams though, you know, when we're watching them, they do play a lot more consistently than others. They don't go for as many explosive plays, or they just don't go for, maybe not as explosive plays, but, you know, as risky plays that might have a higher chance of defeat. You know, that does work for some people, while, you know, being a little more risky works for other people. So maybe try out both, but that's at least what I'm going to say really about this. One thing that I guess I should finish on about consistency versus being risky is that it's not always just about, you know, learning the game, your playstyle, whatever. It can also be about what characters you pick. Some characters are simply just more consistent than other characters. A very good McCree is a lot more consistent, and, you know, a lot of the time than I guess like a very good Widowmaker, just because how the character works, because the ranges of the game, because how shields work, because how a lot of stuff works, and because mainly how dive comp just destroys, I guess, both of them, but mainly Widow even more than McCree, and McCree kind of fits into a little bit more comps. While both of them can do really well and do a lot of damage, of course, one's a little bit more risky and can pull out a bit more stuff, and one's a little bit more consistent. I guess a better example, though, since those guys are both hit scan, would be like a Soldier 76, and then with a Hanzo. I guess that's probably the easiest example. Of course, Hanzo might be able to get big explosive plays, but he's a pretty risky pick because you can't consistently hit all your shots like Soldier can. But Hanzo might be able to carry a little bit more because he can one-shot people faster. He can take people out of the fight before Soldier can, And, you know, you gotta just have to take that 50-50 and kind of decide what type of player you are. Do you like one side or the other more? Or can you really just mix both of them, become really good at both, and help yourself climb pretty quickly? That's at least my own opinion about this. And mainly, again, I'd say when you're at lower elos, focus on that consistency. But once you get to higher elos, maybe practice some more explosive plays and see how that takes you. Anyways, as always, guys, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Sorry I went a little bit off on a tangent on some stuff, but I hope you still enjoyed anyways. As always, if you did, leave a like, comment, anything you really want to, and hit that sub button to see more videos like this in the future. Anyways, as always, guys, thank you all for watching, and have a wonderful day.